What was I thinking in agreeing to dog sit a 2-year-old lab? I was in my office trying to get some work done, and I heard this incredible commotion going on in my living room. And all I knew is I couldn't deal with it much longer, because when I went out into the living room, I saw that Finn had taken every single one of Daisy's toys out of her her wonderful toy box until he found what he thought was the perfect toy to play with. How long would you put up with that? I couldn't put up with it. So I took it from the dog, which wasn't easy because he really loved this toy. And when I finally got the toy, I went and I thought, well, I'll just put it on the shelf in my coat closet in the front hall. Solved the problem, right? Not. The dog sat outside that closet, looking at the door, at first howling. Such separation anxiety from this toy, howling. Then he started barking because he knew what was in this closet, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? But the reality is, if you look, Daisy was laying on the couch with her favorite ball, loving every moment of it. Because Daisy is now 12 years old, and yet having a 2-year-old lab around brought out the puppy in her again. So brought out the puppy in her again. I mean, people were able to see that for our family moving night here on Friday night, because of course I brought Daisy, but I invited Finn to join us too, and they loved it. Finn laying in the blanket on the floor with the kids in their pillows, rolling on its back. But it was also wonderful to see Daisy laying there, rolling and letting the children pet her belly, rub her belly, give her those belly rubs. And what was fascinating to most people is Daisy suffers what is referred to in clinical terms, it's an actual clinical term, she suffers from possessive aggression. That's the clinical term. Possessive aggression. Translated into English, if another dog tries to take her ball, she will kill it. That's possessive aggression. No other dog is going to touch her ball except Finn. And that's what fascinated them on Friday night, to see the two of them sharing the ball back and forth and running and taking turns with the ball and not having Daisy growl once. It was fun to see her act like a puppy again. And it was a great reminder to me of how good it was to bring a 2-year-old lab into my life too. Because I guess I was just getting a little old and cranky, and all I needed was a bit more of that in my life to bring out the child in me. Because the reality is, being an adult sometimes can just really be a downer. I mean, it really makes me reflect on some of those adult emotions that I suffer from. You know, things like jealousy, selfish ambition. Isn't that what James was talking about in our second reading in chapter 3, verse 16? Where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. If you think the possessive aggression in Daisy can be frightening, You should see what jealousy and selfish ambition in adults looks like if you really want to be frightened. And that's what the letter of James in our second reading today was really challenging us to reflect on. What type of feelings are we walking around with? What type of emotions are we expressing? And are these really healthy? Is it maybe time to set aside some of these adult disorders, I'd like to call them, and recapture that child in ourselves again? To allow ourselves to be drawn in to the childlike openness that the Lord invites us to in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 36 to 37, where Jesus said, taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, Jesus said to them, whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. We, with childlike openness, need to be able to approach the Lord, to allow the Lord to wrap his arms around us and to share in love personified. But it takes a childlike openness to do this. His followers didn't get it. What were they arguing about on the way? It was so frustrating. He just shared with them redemption, saying, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be turned in. People are going to torture me and put me to death, but don't worry. I'm going to rise again and be present to you in a way that will never be taken from you again. I'm going to rise again. He reveals this great eternal redemption. And what are they arguing about on the way? Who is the greatest among them? Again, another adult disorder. And he's just like, that's not how it works. And he uses a child as an example. This childlike openness to what the Lord is truly offering us that will fulfill every one of our desires, but unfortunately it's going to take us setting some of our egos aside. Some of those needs that we think we need to be the greatest. Some of that jealousy and selfish ambition. We need to be open to the Lord embracing us and coming to share in the counsels of God. That was the mistake we heard about in our first reading from the book of Wisdom, chapter 2, verses 21 to 22. They erred, for their wickedness blinded them, and they did not know the hidden counsels of God. The hidden counsels of God that are available to us when we get rid of that wickedness, that jealousy, that selfish ambition, anything that blinds us and keeps us from seeing the Lord. Seeing the Lord calling us with childlike openness to his side. Seeing the Lord wrapping his arms around us and sharing with us the hidden counsels of love that are in his heart. Let us pray for that childlike openness that the Lord invites us to discover. It's good to watch a 2-year-old lab every once in a while. It was good for Daisy to have the puppy in her come out again. And what I love is the wonderful things that Daisy taught Finn. See, it went both ways. And so the exciting thing is, Finn went home learning a couple very important things, thanks to Daisy. Number one, Finn now knows how to beg from the table. And number two, knows how to go on the furniture.